University of Idaho students killed more than 2 weeks ago. At a vigil last night, the father of one of the victims saying Kaylee and Madison died together in the same bed. And it comes after conflicting reports made by the county prosecutor, with police now saying they do not know if the home nor the victims were targeted. The prosecutor had said they were targeted. Senior national correspondent Brian Enton joins us live tonight from Moscow, and we are answering more viewer questions. We asked you for them at the top of the hour. So, Brian, Michelle is asking, won't the police find their best lead in forensic trace evidence from defensive contact made by the victims?
Yeah, you would think. I mean, that's definitely a possibility. We've asked them all sorts of detailed questions about that, and they're not giving us that information right now. The most we know are some details that came from the coroner a couple of weeks ago when she said that some of the victims did have defensive wounds on them. So you would think that the killer's DNA would be on the victims. Hopefully that's something that they're testing behind the scenes right now.
Okay, so Brian, Jill is asking another viewer, what is the actual timeline for Ethan and XANA? Is it a secret?
Another very good question. I don't know that it's necessarily a secret, but there is a gap, at least that we know of. Police might know more that they're not telling us, but they were at a fraternity party very, very close to here, about a 5-minute walk away from here. And we know that they were spotted at that party the night before the murders, but we don't know that they stayed there. They didn't get back here to the house until around 2 a.m. And there's still these questions about where they were in the interim. Last time I interviewed police, they said that that's one of the things that they're really hoping the public will come forward if they have any information about.
All right, so here's another question, Brian. This is from Nicole. She is asking, does the Sigma Chi house have cameras on the outside or even inside to see who's coming and going? And I believe the Sigma Chi house is right across the street from the house where the murders happened, right?
Yeah, it's not far at all. Actually, if you want to pan real quick, I'll show you, Nicole. It's the fraternity house. It's right over there. You can kind of see in the distance. Beyond these houses here, there's kind of a white field, and then the fraternity house is right there on the other side. I haven't seen any cameras, surveillance cameras over there. We've looked a couple of times. It's possible that they're just not easy to spot. But I've said it before, this is a small town, not a lot of crime, not a lot of places have security cameras. If you live in a big city, you're used to pretty much everyone having a camera. That's really not the case here at all.
All right, so Brian, here's the last viewer question we have for you today. This is from Jen. She wants to know if any of the trees look like they're climbable, or even possibly that someone could climb and peep into one of the upstairs windows.
So the trees, I mean, yes, they're climbable. What I find interesting is on the back of the house, there is a balcony, and it's not low enough that you could just easily jump up onto it, but it's also not that high. If you had a little ladder or a step stool, it might have been possible to get up on that balcony. It's possible the slider was unlocked up on that balcony because it was technically up on the second floor. So that's a way the killer could have gotten inside. I don't suspect that it involved the tree, though.
All right, Brian Enton live for us on the scene. They're answering.
Welcome back to my mental health and crime channel. My name is Huda London. This is for entertainment purpose only. This is the case of the Idaho quadruple murders. I'd like to start by thanking all my subscribers, viewers, for all the support, kindness, respect, mindfulness, comments that you leave in the channel. I really do appreciate that. May the 4 precious victims rest in peace, and condolence to their families. Today I'd like to discuss about the timeline of the Idaho quadruple murders. When I'm talking about the timeline, I'm actually talking about the previous timeline that was given to us. I do understand in the beginning of every case, the information isn't going to be accurate in the timelines because obviously the police officers, the FBI and the investigators are trying to find the correct information from people so that they could gather the case together and find out exactly What happened? But my focus is on the timeline, because the timeline that we are given between 3 to 4 a.m. sounds completely right to me. If you follow everything that was happening at that time, it will show you that there is something not right with this timeline. 3 to 4 a.m. was the first timeline we were given. If you all paid attention in the beginning of this case, News Nation, Law and Crime Network, and many channels brought out the body cam video, not only of Banfield, but of basically a car that was flashing their lights, and it was in front of Kings Road or near Kings Road. This was the same time as the Banfield incident was going on. I found that to be very interesting, because since the officers and since Moscow police are looking for a white car that was seen around that area, I wonder if there was actually 2 cars roaming around that area. One could have belonged to Brian Christopher Koberger, and one could have belonged to someone else. I personally don't believe that it was one person who committed this horrific crimes by himself within 16 minutes. This guy is a PhD student. He's not a hitman. So this does not make sense at all. But what I keep on thinking about is, if Brian Christopher Koberger was involved in this case, the only way I can see that he could have been involved is if he got participants to get involved in his research. Because let's not forget that article that came on Reddit and Twitter and all. We can't ignore that. But then let's remember once again that we can't confirm 100% that it was written for this purpose of this crime. I personally believe that when Brian Christopher Koberger wrote that research and he was searching for participants, that was in 2020. So I don't think that it had any connection with this case that happened in 2022. And I've asked a person who's a lawyer, is it normal for them to write a research like that? And they said that they wouldn't have chose to do that research, but they don't find it baffling. They don't find it strange or shocking that he did that, because they said that this is about crime and justice. And if he was learning about crime and justice, he was trying to basically investigate and research about how criminals think. But then that is not a subject people would easily touch on. So the question I have is, could it be possible that Brian put up that research and got candidates to join in? Example, the fraternity boys. Somebody could have asked Brian how to commit a crime and get away with it. And he could have joined them for whatever reason. Because let's pay attention to that there were many people that night who were roaming around. Whether it was in the Banfield, or whether it was in the grub truck, or whether it was the 4 figures or 5 figures running back to Banfield. Running back to the Sigma Chi. So there were 4 figures running. There was a car that was flashing its lights. Many people thought that it was the light from Maddie's room, and it wasn't. So the question is, what happened between 3 to 4 is what I'm interested in. I believe that timeline has been changed for a purpose, whatever purpose. And what bothers me is that Dylan herself said in the beginning that she was in the first floor and she saw nothing. She was sleeping. But then when the affidavit came out, everything changed. It was said that Dylan was actually there. Dylan was supposed to be in the first floor, because that is what she said at the start. She took 8 hours to call the police for whatever reason. Not only Dylan, BF even decided to call the police 8 hours later for whatever reason. But the question is, if Dylan was at home and she came home at 1 a.m. and BF was at home and they both say they were sleeping, how did it come about that Dylan changed her narrative or changed her story to saying that she saw a man with bushy eyebrows? This doesn't make sense to me because Dylan said that she heard someone rummaging upstairs. So if she was hearing all these noises and she was texting BF, that clearly is a proof that they both were aware that something bad was happening in the house and they took 8 hours to call the police. That's the only way I can see it, because no matter what, no matter which way I see it, I'll be honest, it doesn't make sense and it'll never make sense to me. I do understand about flight, fight, and freeze mode as a counselor, but I've never heard of someone freezing for 8 hours, because the question automatically comes to me. What comes in my head is, if you waited 8 hours, that means you weren't scared of the person who attacked these 4 innocent people. Because if I was Dylan and if someone came into the house and I heard my roommates saying that someone's here. I heard XANA crying. So if Dylan heard all these noises, why didn't she call the police right after BK left? Because she clearly said that she saw Brian Koberger walking past her and then he went out of the sliding door. She went straight in her room, she said, and she locked herself in the room. She can hear the crying. She heard all the noises. So I'm sure after the person left, she couldn't have just been in her room. You would be wondering, why was the dog barking? Kaylee said someone was here. She saw a man with a black mask. Her father said that she saw a man with a ski mask recently. So she saw a man with a mask and bushy eyebrows. If he had on a ski mask, she wouldn't be able to see if he had bushy eyebrows. So this totally doesn't make sense to me. And it's never going to make sense. That's why I'm really waiting for the trial, because I know many things are on gag order. And now this is the important thing I wanted to come to. What allegedly is on gag order is the timeline of E and XANA. I would love to know, where did they go? There is a gap between 9 to 1:45 that nobody has seen these two. You can even go to Daily Mail and find the clip where the news is talking about in the beginning of XANA and E's timeline. That is the mysterious part, and that is what everyone wants to know. And that is what I was always focused on. Because Kaylee and Maddie, we clearly saw that they went to the grab truck, they came back. We don't know what happened after that. A driver drove them home, allegedly. He watched them go in. So Kaylee and Maddie, we at least do have some whereabouts about them, and we have seen them. That is a good thing. But the sad thing with XANA and E is nobody's seen them. They haven't even taken one picture on social media between 9 to 1:45. And I believe that is really concerning. These are youngsters, young adults who keep on taking pictures. They're always on Snapchat, WhatsApp, different apps. They're in college. So what happened to these two? No picture was taken of them. They didn't post any picture. But then at 3 a.m., we have Jack Kavoshi, who sends a Venmo. His sister sends him back a Venmo too. It kept on going on. And it's just strange. It's bizarre. I wonder if the Venmo was like, the job was done. I don't understand, because there were so many things that were going on in the beginning. that I'm being frank, that something doesn't add up, because people were changing their stories. For the timeline to have been changed from the 13th of November to early January, when the affidavit came out, is really baffling. It really bothers me, because I personally do not believe that this timeline is right. The more I research and the more I go back to old clips from the news media, old clips that I made, that I saved, when I go back to all these things and check for hours and hours, it doesn't make sense. But what makes sense is if I go back to the timeline between 3 to 4, it makes totally sense. Because between 3 to 4, there's a lot of action going on. That's the reason I'm always focused on the grub truck and Banfield. It's not to attack any of the students. They're not minors, but I don't do that. That's not my personality. But what I'm trying to do is trying to study everything, whether it's rumors, whether it's speculations. I always want to be frank and honest and tell my subscribers and viewers from the start that this is speculation, this is for entertainment purpose only. But when it's facts, I already played the facts from News Nation. You can clearly see that the concern was E and XANA. I believe if E and XANA's timeline gets corrected, everything will fall in place automatically. If E and XANA came home at 1:45, I'm sure the two surviving roommates must have seen them. And let's not forget, his father said that XANA was at home. I trust her father. If a parent said that they spoke to the child and the child said that they were going to be at home, that is major. And I'm going to play this for you so that you can hear it for yourself. This interview was done by Jeffrey Canodal. He did it in the Avondale. I believe that's in Arizona. Just listen, please, to what he says.
More about a young woman with ties to the valley who was found dead with 3 roommates in a house near the University of Idaho last weekend.
Sarah Robinson talked exclusively with her father in Avondale today. Still so many questions, Sarah.
Yes, a lot of questions. XANA Kernodle was raised in Idaho, but she spent time here in the valley since her dad moved to Avondale a few years ago. He describes her as fun, smart, and strong-willed, and says it's impossible to imagine she was killed in the worst homicide police say they've ever seen in this small Idaho city.
She didn't really worry about the drama stuff that much.
Yeah.
She wasn't into that. She just liked having fun, wasn't worried about materialistic things. She was with her friends all the time.
Avondale father Jeffrey Kernodal, who was too distraught to be on camera, remembering the life of his daughter, XANA, one of the victims of the brutal stabbing at the University of Idaho, leaving 4 college roommates dead on Sunday.
I heard from her, I think before we went out, I think midnight. The last time I heard from her, and then she was fine.
The murders happened early Sunday morning, rocking the small town of Moscow, Idaho, which hasn't had a murder since 2015, according to state records.
I have no idea. It doesn't make sense.
He says XANA was in constant communication with her family, and nothing about that night seemed unusual.
The door locks with the number code. Every time you open it, like I had to go back to I had to go around the house to get in the house because of the number code. So they either knew that or they just kind of went around and found the slider open.
A father struggling to understand how this could have happened. Why XANA?
They were just hanging out at home.
Yeah.
XANA was hanging out at home with her boyfriend.
2 other female roommates, Madison Mogan and Kaylee Gonsalves, were killed along with XANA's boyfriend, Ethan Chapin, who Jeffrey loved.
Her and Ethan were together about a year, give or take some, whatever, but she really, when I went up there, I saw her just, a week before that. She changed a lot. She had a life. She got to see what it was to have a boyfriend to live with and have a real life. And she really turned around and was being really responsible. helping him out. He did studies and stuff. I was really impressed.
Kernodle says there's one thing the autopsy shows for certain. XANA, a strong-willed girl, fought her killer until the very end.
Bruises, maybe hurt by the knife or whatever. She's a tough kid. Whatever she wanted to do, she could do it.
That was XANA's father, Jeffrey Kernodle, and he clearly said XANA was at home. XANA was chilling at home. He spoke to her that night. So if the timeline of XANA was from 9 to 1:45, that gap of the timeline is kind of missing for us because it could be on gag order, but we don't know what happened to XANA and E. But if her father says that XANA was at home and she's going to be chilling at home, that is exactly what I really believe. Because when I look at the living room and the state it was in, I don't mean it was bad, it was quite clean, but the bottles, alcohol beverage bottles lying on the table, there was one, and then you have these red cups lying on the table too in the living room, and one or two of the cups look like they've been tossed down, like they were lying down on the table itself, like somebody knocked over some cups. And I found that to be very interesting because you see the forensics taking pictures of the living room right up to the corridor where XANA lived. I believe it was taken down in the corridor, trigger warning, and that's the reason I'm very interested in the living room to the corridor. Something really happened there because when you look at another part, you have the 5 fingerprints on the Good Vibes picture. So I wonder if the struggle started there. It could be possible, like Jeffrey Kernodle said, that XANA and E were chilling at home and somebody was let in the house or somebody forgot to lock the door. But then you have Brian Antonio answering these questions, which I think were really wise questions, smart questions that were asked. One person asked about the tree. If somebody could have climbed up the tree and peeped in the house, and he said at the end, "Yeah, it's a tree that I'm more concerned over, that they could have used the tree." And he even mentioned the ladder. So if you remember, there was that small ladder lying around. I wonder actually if these people came from the back side of the house and not the sliding door. The window is very important because you see the forensic team taking a lot of pictures of the window. And I think it's really important. Something could have happened in Queens Road. That is what I believe. Because that car park, you could see that when the detectives decided to broaden the crime scene, it was done 3 weeks later. And you could see that they got tapes and they made it further down the car park. So something must have happened in the car park, could have come from Linda Lane to the car park and down to the house, but we don't have proof of that. This is just my thoughts, my speculations. It's for entertainment purpose only. If E and XANA attended the Sigma Chi fraternity party, I'm sure there were over 100 people in the party. How come nobody saw them? How come nobody took pictures with them? Did someone go to E and XANA in the house while they were in the living room and attack them? I believe that is the main possibility because these 2 people haven't been seen. They haven't been seen by anyone between 9 to 1:30. Now let's go back to the grub truck when the people are yelling XANA, XANA, and E's name. It had to be for a reason. And if something happened to XANA, that was the timing of 2 a.m. And then I always play that clip where E's mother says clearly 2 a.m. is the hardest time for our family, for all. So what happened at 2 a.m.? The Chapin family must have got a message, or one of their 2 remaining triplets must have called and told them what happened to E and the timing. And let's not forget the mother, Stacy Chapin, took her son E, may he rest in peace, for a second autopsy, for a private autopsy. So I'm sure she has load of informations of what happened, like to her son. I'm talking about the physical wounds and what unlived him. This case is, I know, baffling, it's confusing, it's sad, it's heartbreaking. But then I always think if I move over to another case, it wouldn't be fair for what I'm working with, spending hours with time researching, going back to the beginning, analyzing. For me, I think like this is a case that I do not want to leave until the correct justice is served. Not justice, correct justice is the right word. Brian Christopher Koberger, I personally believe, could be really involved with this, and I really believe that he had other people with him. That is one option. My second thought, or my second option when I think about it, is every time I research more and get deeper into this case, the more it looks like Brian Christopher Koberger is either innocent or framed for this crime. But if his phone was pinging in all these places at those certain times, then it is more chances and more likely that he was involved and he got help from someone. Whether it was from inside the house, allegedly, or whether it was from other places like fraternities. That is completely possible. And I'm just wondering, where was XANA and E? How come nobody saw them? In the beginning, there were rumors, a lot of rumors going on that Quinn Kelly, that would be Dylan's boyfriend or former ex-boyfriend, was seen in 1122 Kings Road. So what was he doing there? Dylan and him took a lot of pictures apparently, and then she put it on private or deleted it. I believe there was a lot going on. I am baffled and shocked when the Moscow police says that it was a quiet night. Which part of the quiet night did we witness? Let's be honest. Nothing. I saw 4 figures running. I saw Saeed watching some crime scene pictures, allegedly. I saw the police, the undercover police, not doing their job correctly. The boys ran from them. They weren't even searched. One of them had his hands in his pocket all the time. When you don't search someone, anything can happen. And we know the police are supposed to be especially searching or arresting somebody who ran away from them, just so they find out what the person is hiding and why are they running. It's a crime to run from the police officers. So why were these boys let out so easily? They didn't look to me that they were so drunk, but they looked to me like somebody sent them maybe to distract the police. And we saw so many things going on. We heard the screams, "Stop it, stop." A female was yelling it. Where did it come from? Was it outside the house? Another thing, why is Maddie's coat lying around in the bushes? What happened to these poor innocent victims? I find it hard to believe that they were sleeping and somebody just came into the house and attacked them. I believe it was targeted, like the police said, whether it was the house or whether it was the students. There was something going on there that shouldn't have been going on. These young adults were partying daily. Nothing was told to them. They didn't get any warnings. We heard the police officer telling XANA, if this continues, then I'll have to inform the dean of the university. If you're going to inform him, you should have informed him so that these children get a warning and then they would have been at least alive. I have seen and researched many fraternities, and it seems like there's always something going on with them. Whether it's SAs, whether it's revenge, whether it's bullying, whether it's hazing. Even the FBI got involved because they were making thousands and thousands in doing all this illegal stuff. So I really hope that this case gets solved. I really hope that they find out who really did this, who was involved,